Confetti Covered Quicksand, Chapter 16, The Funeral. I learned something from my stay in Aspen. I learned that my problems were not the fault of the town I was living in, nor the people I was hanging out with. They weren't the fault of the Sunset Strip scene or the glam rockers. They weren't the fault of the LA club scene or rich California kids. They weren't the fault of the town of Aspen and the trust fund kids. They weren't the fault of my family, who I blamed all of my situations on deep inside. They were my fault. My behavior was not changing. No matter where I went, it was coming with me. It was August of 1997, and I was back in Los Angeles living with Charlie. We were living in a powder pink condo with a fluffy white Persian cat. There was a glittered star on each of our bedroom doors like they were dressing rooms. My room was powder blue and full of my comfort items, Barbies, My Little Ponies, and Hello Kitty shit. I took another waitress job, a place that had a huge menu. I thought I would never learn the thing. Little did I know the menu was nothing compared to many of the a-holes I'd have to deal with. And some days the people were nice, but the place was run so badly that it made the experience terrible for everyone involved. Food would be hot and ready to be brought out to tables, but there would be no clean silverware. So what do? Well, when you're running around like a maniac, you don't have time to think, you just act. We were all slamming into each other with fistfuls of silverware, running them under cold water in the sinks and wiping them dry with our little hand towels. People would want coffee, but there was no clean coffee cups. They would want soup on a rainy day, but guess what wasn't clean? Soup bowls and soup spoons. Sometimes the dishwasher was just backed up, but most of the time it was because they refused to order more of these supplies. There were also times when Immigration and Naturalization Services, otherwise known as INS, I think now they call it ICE, would do a sweep and wipe out half of our staff because they were mostly illegal aliens from Mexico. They would take the dishwashing guy and the pizza guy and a bunch of busboys. One time they took the pizza guy back across the border so we didn't have pizzas, which I had to explain to a table of business guys. And one of them said, "Is that my problem? I want pizza." I ran to the back to make one, crashing into the other waiters throwing together pasta with their bare hands. It was very, very hectic, and as a server, the point was to be able to take a lot of tables at once so you could make the most money possible. But trying to give 10 tables good service is impossible. You need to be able to spend more time with each table. At Pow Pow, we were to take 5 tables at a time at the most. At this new place, I was given the entire patio by myself, or the entire back room, which was 30 or so tables. I had anxiety attacks on those days. I would get terrible chest pains and my eyes would fill with tears. I would see 4 tables of people with their menus down, ready to order. I would then see 3 or 4 other tables irate because, well, their food was taking so long. Their food was ready, I just didn't have an extra second to go and get it. Then I would see 4 additional tables that were ready to pay. Some needed change, some needed their credit cards run. Then there would be a few other tables that were done and were ready for their check. And there was always a table with a baby that needed some special request, some cut-up oranges, some plain spaghetti with butter, some peas. And all of these people were staring at me. I just had to try to avoid making eye contact. It was called being slammed if you were terribly busy and dead if you were slow. Many famous people came into that particular restaurant, everyone from Mr. T to Lisa Marie Presley. I waited on Will Smith and Jada Pinkett, Tommy Lee and Pamela Anderson, Rick James, Alice Cooper, Tito Jackson, Mick Fleetwood, Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger, and probably 40 other famous people at least. I was the most excited to see the one-armed drummer from Def Leppard, though. Anyone from the Brady Bunch always made me starstruck. And one time I was waiting on Rebecca Romaine and John Stamos. She was really cool, ordering a ton of food, and he was cranky and on a strict diet. He was annoyed that she could eat whatever she wanted, and she was cracking up. He asked me what kind of mustard we had, and I named off 4 different types, one of them being a brand called Beaver. And he said in all seriousness, "Is the Beaver hot?" Then he heard her stifling laughter. He slowly looked over at her with a totally straight face, and she laughed even harder. She couldn't stop. I started laughing with her, and then I couldn't stop, and he just sat there and gave her the side eye. There were also a lot of wannabe actors that frequented the place, which meant Many of those "do you know who I am?" special requests. I expected it from the women, but it was really pathetic to hear so many men want diet food. They were such pussies. Basically, no one in the whole town would eat anything touched by oil or butter. Southern California, of course. No butter, no oil, everything steamed, everything well done so all the fat is off of it. Understood. I mean, that's how Pow Pow was too. But the people at this place wanted well-done egg whites scrambled with steamed broccoli with a well-toasted sesame bagel sliced in threes. Threes. Not sliced down the middle, but sliced 3 times. Even the things that were most simple were made complicated. They wanted such specific things. It just couldn't be done sometimes. And they would throw a fit, yell, throw their food, call you stupid. There was nothing too crazy for these people to do. One demanding woman wanted well-done, sunny-side-up eggs with no oil or butter. The cook tried to do it, but she kept sending it back. He finally said he couldn't make it any more well done. People would want bacon that shattered. They thought if it were really well done, there would be no fat on it. Little did they know the secret to making it that well done was to deep fry it. The entertainment industry assholes absolutely refused to order off the huge menu. No, that was for the common folk. They liked the thought of a chef personally preparing something for them. They would shut the menu and say, I feel like 2 turkey slices and a well-toasted slice of sourdough and a side of cantaloupe and a side of carrots, and I would like 2 spinach leaves steamed for 3 minutes placed on top of the bread. They're always telling us how many minutes something was to be cooked. Things like that. A little did they know the chef was hungover and on coke with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth and did not give a fuck about any of the screaming people. He was never impressed by any star, except for when John Ritter came in. He had tired eyes and didn't say much. Never got excited. Life seemed to be over for him, except for the weekends when he would hire hookers and strippers to come to his place and do coke with him. That's what he looked forward to. The other cook was fat, had gold teeth, and always dry-humped the air in front of him while singing Mexican love songs. If I yelled at him over a wrong order, he'd say, Are you red? Are you red? Meaning, are you on your period? 'Cause you're being a bitch. And if I started gaining weight, he would say, No more cheese, honey, you're getting fat. If one of the waitresses asked for their order and it was in front of them, which happened often because there were plates everywhere, he'd say, Open your fucking holes, honey. It was pretty funny. The deep fryer guy was also always on coke. He was young, he had a lazy eye, short curly hair, and was always laughing. Sometimes he would slide a little folded-up piece of paper over the counter while I was waiting for my food, and I would open it to see white powder and quickly fold it back up and throw it at him and say, Are you crazy? Somebody's going to see you. The staff was very cool, though, and I recall paying some of the young busboys to rub my feet after my shift. Oh, and I got in trouble for being rude a few times. Once a guy wouldn't get off his phone, and I finally asked him for his number so I could call him and take his order. My boss was not happy about that. And another time a huge table of loud businessmen spent a few $100s on food and tried to leave me a $5 tip. I looked at it, then put out my other hand and motioned for more with a bored look on my face. I was like, come on, cough it up. They were furious. They snatched a $5 bill, they ripped it to pieces and screamed and threw it in the air. Then they gave me more money. I dated a younger guy from work who was convinced he looked just like Brad Pitt. He did look a lot like him, but I refused to admit it because I saw how much he wanted me to say it. We never discussed it, but he would do the stupidest things like asking me to go to the video store with him and then picking up a Brad Pitt movie, hoping I would say, Hey, you look just like Brad Pitt. He even went and stood next to a poster of Brad Pitt in 12 Monkeys. I still wouldn't say it. I acted as if it hadn't dawned on me. He desperately wanted me to try ecstasy with him, which I did, and it did nothing to me. He was dancing around me with a glow stick and some nasal spray that was supposed to increase my high, and I was just sitting there trying not to laugh. The most fantastic thing that happened with him, though, was when I was at his apartment and his beauty pageant ex-girlfriend, who was probably a current girlfriend, kept banging on the door, and he wanted me to hide. I said, Please, I don't hide. I'm not crouching in some closet so you can hide from some chick in a tiara and a sash. He was begging me, telling me she was crazy. I examined my nails on the couch, and I refused to budge. The girl's banging was getting more and more intense. She started yelling that she knew he was home. I could see her through the foggy glass window. It was one of those big windows that's kind of like a shower door. You can't truly see through it, but light comes through and all of that. The girl backed up, took a running leap, and shattered the entire glass window with her body. After she did a total stuntman move, she ran straight into his room to try to slap him or something. It was like the glass was just a minor inconvenience. He grabbed her and tried to carry her out, but she was kicking and flailing all over the place, and she somehow clammed her legs into the door frame, and he couldn't get her out. It was a spectacular sight. I sat there all calm with my eyebrows up while all of this commotion was going on. That August was a big deal because Bertie was finally turning 21. I had a birthday card set out for her, which I was sure she would love. I ran into one of the Jesus twins at work, who Bertie and I often called the Twin Idiots. They were two obnoxious New York guys with inflated egos who were often on the Howard Stern show. We used to see them at the Rainbow, and they would totally annoy us. Anyway, I had the one twin write a special note to her on his show flyer, and I included it in her card, and I could not wait for her to open it. The phone rang the next morning before I left for work, and Charlie answered and said it was for me. It was a guy. I was excited and nervous. Ooh, who could it be? I plopped down on her bed, and I said hello. I heard the voice of someone who was quiet and sad. He had announced himself as Bertie's boyfriend. He had been seeing her the whole year I was in Colorado. Yes, I said. Bertie, she died, he said quietly. Wait, what? She's dead. I couldn't comprehend it for a second. He told me she overdosed on heroin. Her heart had stopped. He started crying and told me the funeral was in a few days. I was completely devastated. I wondered if she had done it on purpose. The first thing that hit me was that I could never talk to her again, never see her again, never laugh with her again. And from that point on, I went into a horrible, horrible sinking depression. And I was sure I could never laugh again for the rest of my life, never smile again. There was no way the heaviness could leave my heart. The boyfriend picked me up and took me to her parents' house before the funeral, and her mother told me to take anything I wanted from her room. I went upstairs to the room by myself, and the lights were off, and there was a little bit of sunlight coming through the window. It looked so small suddenly. It was unusually quiet without her laugh and her music and her hairdryer. All of her walls were still covered with pictures of models from French and Italian Vogue, yet there were some stuffed animals and things from her childhood out in the shelves. She was part kid and part woman. I looked at the pink recliner. I sat in that thing for hours waiting for her to get ready. Hours! And when guys tried to come home with us, we would say, "Sorry, there's no room for you. You'll have to sleep on the pink chair," as a joke. She died in that chair. It hurt my heart. It made my chest sting. I remembered how relieved I used to be to come to her house when I lived in miserable conditions with my father. I opened her closet and looked at all her pretty clothes. I felt sick thinking that her body was gone. I took a few pictures from her photo albums and I left the room. On the way down the stairs, I saw her old dog. That damn thing outlived her, which freaked me out. As we all walked out to the service, her dad made a comment that we all looked good and she would have liked that. I sat with the boyfriend during the service and I could barely look up at the collage someone had made next to her casket. It felt like a dream, like it couldn't be real. Her parents went up to view the body and her mother started crying, bent down and kissed her. Then the boyfriend went up to kiss her and he started crying because her lips were so cold. He was absolutely in shock. I started to go up, and midway I stopped. I turned around and I booked it out of that church in front of everyone. I didn't care. I couldn't look at her dead. She would have not wanted me to look at her like that. Everyone soon came outside for the burial. They had a guy playing the bagpipes while they lowered her into the ground. I just remember losing it. I couldn't stop crying, and I thought I would be sick. I propped myself against a tree. Her mother came over and tried to comfort me, which made me feel worse for making a scene. August 16th, 1997. Today was Bertie's funeral. I couldn't handle seeing her in a casket. It was the freakiest, most terrible thing I have ever seen in my life. Her mom said she didn't have to worry about her anymore. Her dad said she was always one step ahead of them. Her parents did not want the Hollywood people knowing about it, but I did see this girl Laura in one of the pews. She was the one person Bertie thought of when she wanted to pretend she was dead once. She said, "Do you think Laura would come to my funeral if I ever died? Will you call her and say I died and see what she does?" I told her she was an idiot, and no, I would not do that. Well, she would have been happy because there sat Laura, probably the only person besides me from the Hollywood crowd who attended. Her parents wouldn't let anyone notify her drug-related friends like Ashley Alessandro, who someone has since told and who is now a basket case. How could she be not alive? I never expected 5 years ago that out of all those crazy people, I would be at her funeral. Nothing ever happened to any of us. I've always told myself that as long as Bertie and Anthony are still standing, then I can go on partying and living the way I do, and I have nothing to worry about. She was very caught up in that party scene and was not interested in trying to make the conversion to a normal life, or even a semi-normal one like I have. I tried so many times to talk to her into pulling herself together, but she was not interested. The very last time I spoke to her was a few months ago. My old roommate Simon called me and said that she and her man were very strung out. And I was very worried, and I called her and I talked to her, and she laughed and said she was fine. She was hanging out with Ashley, her former rival from Hollywood. They had joined forces, as all pretty girls eventually do. We talked for a while. At least I told her how much I loved her. I told her I wanted to write a book about her life one day, and she said I could. Then the strangest thing happened when I hung up. I knew she was going to die. I started crying really hard at my aunt's house because something told me she was going to die soon. I told my aunt, and she was like, "But she isn't dead. You just talked to her." Well, I couldn't explain it, but something told me I would not talk to her again, that she would be dead. And now she is. I loved that girl deep in my heart. I honestly really loved her so much, no matter what she did. I was going to send her a card for her 21st birthday tomorrow, but I just crumbled it up and threw it in the trash. I wish she could have seen it. She'll never see anything ever again. She's gone. I can't talk to her. I can't see her. I loved her so much. I wonder if she can see me. I wonder if God took her because her mother prayed so many times. I don't know if I can ever be happy again. I could not shake it. In a stroke of irony, I saw the Dandy Warhol's new video to "Not If You Were the Last Junkie on Earth." There were dancing syringes doing high kicks against a pink background, and a mime was vomiting. The words of the song seemed like a cruel joke. "Heroin is so passé," said the lyrics. I sat on the couch with snot running down my nose. I felt sick to my stomach. I thought somebody had been spying on my brain, on our lives. The timing was just weird. I had never heard such a blatant song about heroin. Then I started getting phone calls. People were asking me what happened, but I felt that she wouldn't want me to say anything. I didn't know how to handle it. When I went out to places that we used to frequent together, such as the Gate, I would get questions, and I refused to acknowledge her death. It seemed too sensational and gossipy. I said she was just fine, never better, doing great, jet-setting somewhere. Charlie gave me a few days to be sad over Bertie's death, and then she asked me when I would be over it so we could have fun again. I told her I was trying, but I couldn't shake it yet. We ended up parting ways, and we were never friends again. I moved in with some girls from work, and all I wanted to do was snort a ton of coke. I did not want to think about anything. I just wanted to feel better. I was jonesing for it all of the time, but I couldn't afford the good stuff. I settled for the cheap shit that Carrie Ann had. Glass. I don't even know what the hell that even is. but I snorted it. I think it's crystal meth mixed with like rat poison and powdered laundry soap. I don't know. But it made looking at wallpaper for 3 hours fun. And yes, I looked at wallpaper for 3 hours once. It was some bottom-of-the-barrel terrible drug that people did in trailer parks. And I remember going to work without sleeping a wink. My pupils were so big that my eyes were pure black. No blue was showing. And I managed to do my job on that shit. The managers noticed, and they were like, "Have you slept yet?" They knew. I had heard about all the bad things drugs did to you. Kill your brain cells, ruin your body, all of that. But there was something else I hadn't heard of, and I found out about it during a romantic evening with one of the hottest guys in town. Hot guy did drugs. I guess you could say he was a hot loser. You know the type. They're the type you're supposed to stay away from, but you often don't, at least in your 20s. Well, I was at hot guy's house eating pineapple candy with him and making out. In between making out, we were snorting God knows what, probably some rat poison or arsenic. I didn't even ask. All was going well, for a night in the valley at least, until my stomach started rumbling. Suddenly I felt that my ass was going to explode like a volcano. I clenched my butt cheeks. I ran to the bathroom, one that was unfortunately within close earshot of hot guy. And I had a crazy case of crazy drug diarrhea. I came out of that bathroom 20 minutes later, and he was suddenly tired and had to be somewhere. I left in total embarrassment, and I didn't hear from him again. But I did receive an unusual crank call. I answered the phone, and I heard a toilet flushing. Served me right, I guess. I was very paranoid about death that whole year. It was a terrible phobia and something that bothered me to the point of crying. What happened to Bertie? Where did she go? Didn't the Bible say you couldn't go to heaven if you killed yourself? Or was that just the words of a religion and not the Bible? Could she really be in hell? She wasn't a bad person inside. That wouldn't be fair. Was she in some waiting room in the sky? Was she just in a peaceful sleep? It bothered me deeply that she wasn't around, and I just had no idea where she went. It took me a while to get over the shock, and I think the thing that finally made me calm down a little bit later was a dream I had. It was Bertie and me in a car, tearing around windy canyons. She told me she was happy she met me on her journey, and I felt a little bit better. I had more dreams about her in very fast cars, dreams where I told her to slow down, you're driving too fast, this is dangerous. I had a dream that I was trying to carry her on a bicycle with all her luggage. I couldn't get anywhere with her and her stuff on my back. I had to drop her off so I could move forward. I had to leave her behind. Then I had dreams about myself. I was on a freeway and cars were passing me by. I was crawling alongside the freeway in a bed of thorns. I had to get to my destination, but it was so much harder for me because I didn't have the same means of transportation as all the others. I had dreams I was on the freeway on my bike, trying to pedal fast enough to keep up, and I was too slow. People were zooming by me, and I was being left in the dust. One of the waitresses at work became pregnant. She was totally calm, happy, and mellow. But as her stomach started to grow, I started to panic. I cannot let this happen to me. I cannot stay here. This is just not okay. What if I want kids one day? I can't be here when I'm pregnant. I need to get out of here. I knew I could do better, but I had no marketable skills to go anywhere else. What was I going to do? Tell them I was fabulous? That wasn't going to fly. I was getting older and I needed some sort of plan. I started feeling a lot of stress. I wore polyester pants, dirty shoes, and I smelled like grease. I always felt disgusting. My life was an unhappy one, and I kept breaking down and crying. The other waitresses were wondering why I was acting so crazy. They told me, calm down, just deal with it. It's just a job. I couldn't explain it to them. As a kid, I had always imagined that I would become something great. I had high hopes for myself. I knew I was capable of more. There is nothing worse than not living up to your potential, than letting yourself down. It's a horrible feeling to know you're not growing, you're not learning, you are doing nothing to better yourself. Those things didn't mean anything to me in the years before, but as I grew older, it just bothered me. I didn't have any plan for my life except to make it through the day each day. I felt completely lost. I started looking around for a mentor, somebody who could advise me. I went to a girl at work named Robbie, who had a journalism degree. She will know what to do, I thought. I went out to lunch and she told me I needed to work on a resume. Resume? What the hell would I put on the damn thing? I felt scared. I turned 25 the next year and I moved out into my own apartment. I put my mattress on the living room floor in front of the TV. I was too scared to sleep in my room. I was afraid somebody would break in through the living room windows and kill me. So I thought I would be able to hear better if I just slept in the living room. My room had nothing in it, just a few boxes of old journals and books from my grandmother's garage. There were several other boxes that had my name on them, but I wasn't sure what was in them. When I opened them, I saw there were all of my old toys and belongings from when I was a child. Strawberry shortcake dolls, sticker books, lunch boxes. I lined them all up in the living room of my empty apartment, sat with them, and cried. I missed being little so much. I didn't want anyone to come to my apartment, so I could just leave the big strawberry shortcake pie shop in the living room. It was as if my heart burst wide open. Living on my own with no roommates to fall back on made me into a functioning member of society. I had to pay my rent on time, pay my bills on time, cable, phone, electric, and gas. I didn't usually buy food because I ate free at the restaurant. I never rang in my food because the cooks would make me whatever I wanted. I never had any savings, so it was scary to think I was not prepared for an emergency. It was a huge burden when I had to buy my yearly boxes of contact lenses. I always had to save up. They say a real friend is one who walks in when the rest of the world walks out. One of the only people who remained from my previous life was my friend Allison from Pow Pow. She always invited me to the holidays at her parents' house. I was so grateful to have her as a friend. She took on something that needed to be addressed, but was a touchy subject. I needed to learn social etiquette and manners. It wasn't something that just anyone could approach. She would tell me about her parents and their friends and what they did and didn't do, kind of like a little crash course in how not to be white trash. She was very gentle about it. I learned that I was in fact very tacky and abrasive much of the time and went about things a little rough. Oh, okay, who am I kidding? I was very rough. I was a bull in a china shop. I snapped at people. I was ready to fight at the drop of a hat. If you came and tapped me on the shoulder, I would turn around with my dukes up. Allison was a tough girl herself, but she had a British mother who taught her proper manners and protocol. If she needed to use that shit, she could pull it off and have tea with the Queen Mother without batting an eyelash. Needless to say, she showed me how to behave in many social situations. She taught me to be polite, how to be gracious, and how to have more empathy toward people. She told me about having pride in yourself and in your family name. There was loyalty in her family. I was beginning to understand just how important that was. She explained to me about keeping your word. When you said you were going to do something, you needed to do it. When you said you were going to be somewhere, you went, period. You went to any length for a friend or a family member. You had to be there for people. Allison had grown in her own right since I very first met her. She was very warm, compassionate, and intelligent. She was there to talk to me about my fears and my sadness over my family and my depression over Bertie. She spent hours talking to me, coming over to my place, inviting me over there. She thought I was so great. She was always telling me I was smart and funny, and she made me feel good. She believed in me so much, and she gave me so much encouragement, so many pep talks. I'm talking hours and hours worth of support. She was also patient with me when I snapped at her and dealt with her in less than civil ways. I took some time to myself just thinking and soaking it all in. I wrote in journals and I sat by myself a lot, and I felt things shifting in my mind. I felt I just wanted to step up to the plate. I was truly ready to take action. One day I looked up into the sky and said to God, I am ready.